Changing conditions. Over time, comparative advantages change, causing international production centers to shift from country to country. For example, when the computer was a new and exotic product, most of its early development and production took place in the United States. But after the technological work was done that turned computers into a widely used product that many people knew how to produce, the United States retained its comparative advantage in the development of computer software design, but the machines themselves could now be easily assembled in poorer countries overseas, and were. Even computers sold within the United States under American brand names were often manufactured in Asia. By the early 21st century, The Economist magazine reported, "Taiwan now makes the vast majority of the world's computer components." This pattern extended beyond the United States and Taiwan, as the Far Eastern Economic Review reported. Asian firms heavily rely on US, Japanese, and European firms as the dominant sources of new technology, while the Asian manufacturers make razor-thin profit margins due to the hefty licensing fees charged by the global brand firms. The computer software industry in the United States could not have expanded so much and so successfully if most American computer engineers and technicians were tied down with the production of machines that could have been just as easily produced in some other country. Since the same American labor cannot be in two places at one time, it can move to where its comparative advantage is greatest only if the country loses jobs where it has no comparative advantage. That is why the United States could have unprecedented levels of prosperity and rapidly growing employment at the very times when media headlines were regularly announcing layoffs by the tens of thousands in some American industries and by the hundreds of thousands in others. Regardless of the industry or the country, if 1 million new and well-paying jobs are created in companies scattered all across the country as a result of international free trade, that may carry less weight politically than if 500,000 jobs are lost in one industry where labor unions and employer associations are able to raise a clamor. When the 1 million new jobs represent a few dozen jobs here and there in innumerable businesses scattered across the nation, there is not enough concentration of economic interest and political clout in any one place to make it worthwhile to mount a comparable counter-campaign. Therefore, laws are often passed restricting international trade for the benefit of some concentrated and vocal constituency, even though these restrictions may cause far more losses of jobs nationwide. The direct transfer of particular jobs to a foreign country, outsourcing, arouses much political and media attention, as when American or British telephone answering jobs are transferred to India, where English-speaking Indians answer calls made to Harrods department store in London, or calls to American computer companies for technical information are answered by software engineers in India. There is even a company in India called TutorVista, which tutors American students by phone, using 600 tutors in India to handle 10,000 subscribers in the United States. Those who decry the number of jobs transferred to another country almost never state whether these are net losses of jobs. While many American jobs have been outsourced to India and other countries, many other countries outsource jobs to the United States. The German company Siemens employs tens of thousands of Americans in the United States, and so do Japanese automakers, Honda and Toyota. As of 2006, 63% of the Japanese brand automobiles sold in the United States were manufactured in the United States. The total number of Americans employed by foreign multinational companies runs into the millions. How many jobs are being outsourced in one direction compared to how many are being outsourced in the other direction changes with the passage of time. During the period from 1977 to 2001, the number of jobs created in the United States by foreign-owned multinational companies grew by 4.7 million, while the number of jobs created in other countries by American-owned multinational companies grew by just 2.8 million. However, During the last decade of that era, more American jobs were sent abroad by American multinational companies than there were jobs created in the United States by foreign multinationals. Not only is the direction of outsourcing volatile and unpredictable, the net difference in numbers of jobs is small compared to the country's total employment. Moreover, such comparisons leave out the jobs created in the economy as a whole as a result of greater efficiency and wealth created by international transactions. Even a country which is losing jobs to other countries on net balance through outsourcing may nevertheless have more jobs than it would have had without outsourcing. That is because the increased wealth from international transactions means increased demand for goods and services in general, including goods and services produced by workers in purely domestic industries. Free trade may have a wide support among economists, but its support among the public at large is considerably less. An international poll conducted by The Economist magazine found more people in favor of protectionism than of free trade in Britain, France, Italy, Australia, Russia, and the United States. Part of the reason is that the public has no idea how much protectionism costs and how little net benefit it produces. It has been estimated that all the protectionism in the European Union countries put together saves no more than a grand total of 200,000 jobs at a cost of $43 billion. That works out to about $215,000 a year for each job saved. In other words, if the European Union permitted 100% free international trade, every worker who lost his job as a result of foreign competition could be paid $100,000 a year in compensation, and the European Union countries would still come out ahead. Alternatively, of course, the displaced workers could simply go find other jobs. Whatever losses they might encounter in the process do not begin to compare with the staggering costs of keeping them working where they are. That is because the costs are not simply their salaries, but the even larger costs of producing in less efficient ways, using up scarce resources that would be more productive elsewhere. In other words, what the consumers lose greatly exceeds what the workers gain, making the society as a whole worse off. Another reason for public support for protectionism is that many economists do not bother to answer either the special interests or those who oppose free trade for ideological reasons. The arguments of both have essentially been refuted centuries ago and are now regarded within the economics profession as beneath consideration. For example, as far back as 1828, British economist Nassau W. Sr. wrote, "High wages, instead of preventing our manufacturers from competing with foreign countries, are in fact a necessary consequence of the very cause which enables us to compete with them, namely the superior productiveness of English labor." But economists' disdain for long-refuted fallacies has only allowed vehement and articulate spokesmen to have a more or less free hand to monopolize public opinion, which seldom hears more than one side of the issue. One of the few leading contemporary economists to bother answering protectionist arguments has been internationally renowned economist Jagdish Bhagwati, who agreed to a public debate against Ralph Nader. Here was his experience. Faced with the critics of free trade, economists have generally reacted with contempt and indifference, refusing to get into the public arena to engage the critics in battle. I was in a public debate with Ralph Nader on the campus of Cornell University a couple of years ago. The debate was in the evening, and in the afternoon I gave a technical talk on free trade to the graduate students of economics. I asked at its end how many were going to the debate, and not one hand went up. Why? I asked. The typical reaction was, why waste one's time? As a consequence of the nearly 1,000 students who jammed the theater where the debate was held, the vast majority were anti-free traders, all rooting for Mr. Nader. Because the buzzword globalization has been coined to describe the growing importance of international trade and global economic interdependence, Many tend to see international trade and international financial transactions as something new, allowing both special interests and ideologues to play on the public sphere of the unknown. However, the term globalization also covers more than simple free trade among nations. It includes institutional rules governing the reduction of trade barriers and the movements of money. Among the international organizations involved in creating these rules are the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Trade Organization. These rules are legitimate subjects of controversy, though these are not all controversies about free trade.